live. Where's my picture? Can they hear me? Oh, okay.
And you muted. Okay, go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here to SGCI Multiple Layers. We have a lot of great content today and tomorrow. My name is Susan Chikowski. I'm a professor of printmaking here at Western Illinois University, and I'm one of the co-treasurers. Our speakers tonight are Latoya M. Hobbs and Miranda Metcalf. We will hear a talk by Latoya and Miranda. We'll conduct an interview and ask the audience questions. We are broadcast to our homepage, Facebook, and YouTube via StreamYard. For closed captioning, please use YouTube. We will have someone monitor the comments on Facebook and on the live chat on YouTube for questions. We are also recording this. First, we would like to thank one of our many sponsors. Grand Marais, nestled between the horizon line of Lake Superior and the wilderness of boreal forests. The Grand Marais Arts Colony is a catalyst for the arts in the Great Lakes region, supporting artists through classes for adults and youth, residencies, exhibitions, and signature events.
We would also like to thank the Scopulos Foundation for the Arts. Scope Art was established as a nonprofit organization in 1999 by its founder, Gloria Carr. The mission of Scope Art is to promote visual arts and arts education through cultural exchanges. Guided by Hellenic history and culture, the foundation promotes artistic dialogue between the Greek, American, and international communities of artists on the island of Scopulos, one of the great Greek northern Spouros islands in the western Aegean Sea. The foundation is set up to offer workshops from June through September and artist residencies from April through October. The foundation requires a minimum 3-week stay starting in 2024, an application 90 days prior to arrival, and all applications must be approved by the board of directors. Individual artists may apply for residencies by contacting the foundation directly through Jill Summer, director, or by applying on the website. Scholarships are available for approved applicants too. The printmaking facilities overlook the Aegean Sea with lots of windows so that the artists will always see the light and constantly changing colors of the water. The studio has equipment accommodating beginners to the most advanced printmakers. Scopulos is a place that takes the imagination beyond what one thinks is possible if you allow it. It is for the flexible adventurer that wants to create and be engulfed by the Greek culture. If you want to have an experience you will never forget, come work on your own or in one of our workshops. We promise you it will be productive and, of course, we'll have a lot of fun.
The MFA Book Arts and Printmaking program at the University Arts is an intensive, interactive, and rigorous program where students cultivate a hybrid methodology among the art and book of printmaking, papermaking, and letterpress printing, delving into text and image, the temporal and the spatial, the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional, and the traditional as well as experimental. You'll be prepared for multidisciplinary applications in the contemporary art world. You'll also examine the transference of ideas, utilizing diverse media, including letterpress, lithography, intaglio, screen print, polymer, and digital printmaking, in collaboration with paper as the multiple. Your education will extend into prominent institutions of Philadelphia, which offers an area for research, academic exploration, and inspiration. This acts as a fluid, vibrant, and prolific classroom. You'll also be able to intern at institutions such as the Library Company of Philadelphia, the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, and the Free Library of Philadelphia. Additionally, Philadelphia offers a vital contemporary art landscape from printmaking collectives like Second State Press, the Soapbox Community Print Shop, and Zine Library, to artist-run spaces such as Vox Populi, to the established Fabric Workshop and Museum and the Print Center. In addition to private studio spaces, you'll have access to state-of-the-art facilities, including a bindery, a paper-making studio, a digital lab, printmaking facilities offering letterpress, lithography, intaglio, relief, screen print, and alternative process photography.
Kent Blossom Art Intensives, KBAI, are a series of 2-week studio art intensives conducted each summer since 1968 at Kent State University. Similar to an artist residency, students and individual artists create a self-directed body of artwork under the guidance of resident School of Art faculty and talented visual artists from around the country. These studio intensives offer in-depth discussions, professional mentorships, and unforgettable experiences to all that participate. This summer, we are offering a print media intensive with resident faculty, Sharon McMahon, and visiting artists, Karen Litterer and LaToya Hobbs. Explore a multidisciplinary approach to printmaking processes and tools with an emphasis on concept and experimentation. The summer 2023 KBAI session runs from May 18th to May 31st. More information and applications are available on our website, www.kent.edu/KentBlossomArt.
We also have a video sponsor, Random Roulette.
All right, we're having a little technical difficulty on that video. We will play it at the end of the Q&A.
Next, while our speaker sets up, we would like to show you the animated print film, Printflix. Printflix was shown at SGCI virtual event Make Ready in 2021 with this statement. As the post-digital printmaker, we have always risen to the challenges of new technology. In this situation of the COVID epidemic has forced SGCI to be virtual. We and Susan Rostow have decided to curate a show that showcases artists that have used technology coupled with traditional printmaking to make us animations. User-friendly animation software has made it possible for us to bring our prints to life. We hope you enjoy them. We appreciate your virtual feedback. Organizers, Phyllis Merriam, Phyllis at ourownart.com, and Susan Rostow. Printflix features 11 artists. See the banner on the video for the names. Now,
Nested World, a point of intersection, collaboration, and exchange with 20 different artists, where expansive landscapes, figurative iterations, and abstractions have been layered within one another. This cosmic story becomes inhabited by these overlapping elements.
Hi, Yin. Now I would like to introduce you to both Latoya Hobbs and Miranda Metcalf. First, I would like to tell you that Latoya Hobbs is an artist's wife and mother of two from Little Rock, Arkansas, who is currently living and working in Baltimore, Maryland. She received her BA in painting from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and MFA in painting from Purdue University. Her work deals with figurative imagery that addresses the idea of beauty, cultural identity, and womanhood as they relate to women of the African diaspora. Her exhibition record includes numerous national and international venues, including the National Gallery of Namibia, Windhoek, Namibia, SCAD Museum of Art, Albright Knox Museum, and Sophia Wanamaker Galleries in San Jose, California, San Jose, Costa Rica, among others. Hobbs is also a professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art and founding member of the Black Women of Print, a collective whose vision is to make visible the narratives and works of Black women printmakers, past, present, and future. Miranda Metcalf is the creator of Hello Print Friend. Miranda Metcalf lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and runs her LLC, offering freelance writing, lectures, and podcasting, and is the director of Print Santa Fe. Miranda and Latoya.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Miranda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So nice to see you again.
Yeah, doing well.
Very good.
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure who's operating the slides, but
yeah, I think you're supposed to kind of jump into your keynote, and we were gonna chat after. That's how I sort of understood, because I think that
yes, okay, I see.
That'll give a lot of context, and then I'll be helping to moderate the comments that are coming in from around, and then asking some of my own Hello Print Friend-esque questions to you, I'm sure, after we hear about what you've got to share with us today. So I really look forward to hearing your talk.
Yeah, I'm excited to share with everybody today. So again, hello, everybody. First, want to thank you for your time. I'm always honored when people want to sit and listen to me talk about my work. So this evening, I have two exhibitions that are up right now. So I figure it would be a great opportunity to share those with everyone. But again, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm Latoya Hobbs, painter and printmaker based in Baltimore, Maryland. Right now, I am visiting you from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And on the screen, the current slide, you can see an image of myself and my family, my husband, Harrison Jackson, my two sons, Ade and Theo. I always like to start my introductions with a image of my family, just because they're so important to my life and also to my practice. So we can go to the next slide. Is it possible? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so before I actually get into my work, I'm going to just briefly share some of my core influences from my art practice. So the next slide that you're going to see just shows a couple of images by Elizabeth Catlett, who is one of my primary influences in terms of my art practice. And I was exposed to her work as an undergraduate student at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, in like my first, I guess, official required printmaking class. And so I really did not kind of fall in love with printmaking for real until I experienced her work and saw the possibilities of it, and also just how she was able to how she represented Black women in her work. In particular, her work really spoke to me on a personal level, and it caused me to want to delve into the medium of printmaking even more. And so after seeing her work, I decided to add that into my art practice, and I wanted to study printmaking more exclusively at Purdue University for graduate school. There we go. Okay. So that's the slide. You can see a few examples of work by Elizabeth Catlett. Another artist that I was exposed to earlier in my development of my work as a printmaker was Kathy Kallwitz, and she's on the next slide. Yeah, so there's so much like power and emotion and beauty in her work. So yeah, if you're not familiar with her practice, you should be as a printmaker. Yeah, there's so much power and emotion in her work. So that's something that I really try to convey through the subjects that I explore. Okay, next slide. So the next artist I'm going to briefly mention is not a printmaker. Per se. I consider them a mixed media artist, but their name is Andredeka Crosby, and they're on the next slide. She is a really big influence in terms of the current work that I am doing. I'm really trying to challenge myself in expanding my portraiture practice by including more people and environments, just to give more insight to their character, who they are, and the significance that they have. And I think she's an artist that does that really, really well. A lot of her work focuses on the duality of her experience as a Nigerian artist and also now an artist living in America. So I really enjoy the way she uses these kind of physical interior spaces as a way to convey different messages about the sitters in her work. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, so now I'm going to get into, I guess, kind of the meat of my talk today. So I have two exhibitions that are currently on display. The first exhibition I'm going to show is titled Latoya M. Hobbs Woodcuts, and it is a show entirely of woodcuts and works on paper. Something that is significant about this show is that it spans, I would say, the last 12 years of my practice. And so a majority of these works were kind of done during my time as a graduate student at Purdue University. They're all portraits, but you can kind of see how things have evolved with my practice over the past few years. And this exhibition is currently on display at California State University in Stanislaus. And it'll be up until March 16th. So if you're in that area, definitely check it out. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned before, these pieces kind of, again, span over the last 12 years, I would think, and they're all kind of in chronological order. So this first piece is titled Lunar Queen. This print exists in two versions. There is a color version in this print. And also a black and white version. And that's one of the things that I love about printmaking is that it's so versatile. You can do so many different things. Like with this key image, you can play around with it and have lots of different colorways and different variations. But a lot of my work, as I mentioned before, are portraits, just kind of playing around with that medium. But I guess the core of my goal is to give a more, I guess, a more authentic experience of Black women. And so a lot of these images are people that I know personally. This piece in particular happens to be a self-portrait, which you'll see the kind of theme of self-portraiture kind of evolve in my work as well. Okay, we can go to the next image. This piece is crystal, actually, and this is like the first time this work has ever been exhibited anywhere. I made it in 2012, but it's kind of just been tucked away in my flat files. So I figured, this would be a good opportunity to bring the show out since I was doing an exhibition exclusively of woodcuts. The model in this work again is crystal, and I've done lots of other pieces with this same model, which is something that I really enjoy. When I find a person, I guess a muse, so to speak, I tend to use the model over and over again. So some of these faces you'll kind of see reoccur in later works. Okay, next slide. This piece is titled Shay 5. And this piece, again, it exists in like lots of different iterations of the same print. There's a green version. There's one with the same yellow color without borders. And again, that's one of the things that I love about printmaking. There's so much versatility in the medium, and you can do so much with like changing up the images. And thinking about, I guess, the practice of Robert Blackburn. He was one that was kind of known for not necessarily producing like editions of his work, but he was really interested in this kind of experimental way of working with printmaking. And so I kind of like to do that with some of my images as well. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And these next few images are more color-based relief prints. You can see there's a lot of different layers kind of going into the theme of the conference, multiple layers. So I really enjoy incorporating pattern with my work. So the pattern and the figure together. And the next slide, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, a lot of the patterns and that I use in my work are created through Adinkra symbols. So the repetitive like printing and placement of Adinkra symbols. And if you're not familiar with that visual language, there's a couple of like notes on the screen. So typically they're most associated with West African culture. Lots of different symbols that have like different meanings on like life and relationships and moral conduct and spirituality. So I was finding in my research of them that a lot of the symbols kind of reflected some of the themes that I was already exploring in my work. So it's kind of a natural progression to start to incorporate them in my work. Okay, next slide. This piece is Kelly R., another print that exists in multiple variations. I think the most common version of this print that I've shown is like a black and white version of it. But again, this is another piece that's never been exhibited before. So I wanted to kind of bring it out of the vault. Again, just to kind of show like the versatility and the flexibility that is available through the medium of printmaking. And this image is called Transition Double Self-Portrait. So this image, as well as like a lot of the previous image, are from a series that I did titled Beautiful Uprising. Again, this is like the primary focus for my research during my time at Purdue University for my thesis. But a lot of these images, I'm kind of exploring the intersection of race, beauty, and identity among Black women. And so this piece is kind of a direct conversation about hair culture among Black women. It's another self-portrait, but you can see there's two versions of myself, one with straight hair and one with this kind of like exaggerated kinky texture here, just kind of, and we're in dialogue with each other. So I'm really kind of questioning people to think about the beauty practices that they choose to uphold and what those things are really influenced by. Okay. This next print is titled Herero Woman. So this is significant to me because I produced this work during my first artist residency experience. It was in Namibia. It's called the International Artist Residency. So this is like my first like for real artist residency where I was given time and space to work. So I spent 2 weeks like near the Namibian desert and just was able to make work. And so women are kind of like the focus of my work. So I definitely want to do really research some of the ethnic groups there. And so the Herero people were one of the main ethnic groups there. So I did this print during my time in Namibia to kind of commemorate that experience. All right, you can go. These next few images are kind of like postgraduate school work, significant in scale, so around like 3 by 4 feet, which is something that I also really enjoy, is working large. And with the next few slides, you can see that I kind of start to shift and focus more on just working with Black and white prints. I just find there's so much like beauty and strength and boldness in just a simple, well done Black and white print. So in these next few images, a lot of them, we see that there's not a lot of color happening in these works. And this piece is titled Lunar Blessing, kind of a play on like halos. Earlier in my practice, like especially in undergrad, I did a lot of work with halos just to kind of personify like the righteousness and the spirituality of myself and also people in my community. So you can kind of see reference to the halo, but it also can kind of function as a moon. And these like dramatic like rays of light kind of radiating and emanating from the centralized figure in the composition. Another self-portrait. I find that I maybe do a self-portrait like not every year, but maybe at least every other year. And part of that is, it just helps me to kind of chronicle my own experience just as an artist and as a person. Okay. And I want to kind of go quickly through some of these slides just because I'm really excited to talk about the next series of work that are currently up here in Virginia. But all of these blocks, we're done around the same period of time. And something I guess that is significant is that with a lot of these blocks, I started to kind of experiment with this idea of the matrix being the artwork in and of itself. So with a lot of these prints, there is a corresponding block that goes with the print image. We can go along to the next couple images. Let's go to the next one. Okay, we can stop here. So here's an example of a work that kind of exists in 2 parts. This is titled Nina's Gaze. And on the right side of the screen, you can see the work on paper. And so after I did an edition of prints from that block, then I went back to the block and kind of activated that as an artwork in and of itself. So I'm really interested in this idea of the matrix itself being the artwork. And I think that kind of evolved just because of, I think as printmakers, we spend so much time with our matrix. And for me, I just really love like texture and really like tactile surfaces. And so I just kind of became more interested in the block itself. And so I just kind of questioned like, why can't the block be something that we use as the art object itself? And so here's an example of that. And then the next image, Delita. Study number 1 is another example. You can see the print version here, and then the next slide, you can see the block. And so I really like this idea of kind of playing with these same images, producing them in multiple ways. Okay. We can go next image. And I believe these next 2 slides are the most recent works on paper that I've done. The past couple of years, I've been doing a lot of, I guess, more mixed media pieces where I'm kind of exploring this idea of combining my painting and printmaking practice together. But this piece, Aaron's Study number 1, and the next piece, Stargazer, these are the most 2 like recent editions of prints that I've done. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So now I'm going to talk about my current exhibition that is on display at the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art. It's titled Flourish. It opened yesterday on the 9th. And so I really am excited to share these pieces with you guys. I think you're the first audience that I'm actually talking about a lot of these newer pieces in. So before we actually get to some of the images, I just want to kind of talk about the title of the exhibition and what that means to me. And so in the midst of kind of working on these pieces, I was in conversation with the curator and just kind of really thinking about what I wanted to title the show. and I also was kind of in conversation with my husband as well. We were kind of looking at some of the images that I already completed, and we're just kind of, running some ideas. And my husband came up with the word flourish. And so I was a little hesitant at first, and I was like, okay, well, I'll think about it. But I went to look up the definition of the word flourish. And one of the definitions that stood out to me was to grow or develop in a healthy or vigorous way as a result of a particularly favorable environment. And so that definition really kind of stuck with me. And I feel like it represents where I am in my personal life right now, in my practice as an artist. But I also think it's aspirational. It's how I feel about the people in my community and the things that I aspire for them as well. Also, I had kind of gotten into the practice of recently incorporating a lot of like flowers and leaves and foliage in my work, just kind of thinking about other elements that I can continue to add to make the work more visually interesting. So you'll see a lot of that in these new pieces. There's reference to flowers or plants. And that again becomes like symbolic of this idea of like flourishing or thriving or growth. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the first image that you see when you walk into the exhibition. It's also like one of the favorites of the curator. And so this piece is titled Queen Anne. And so this work, as well as a lot of the subsequent works, are from the series that I've been working on for the past few years, titled Salt of the Earth. And so I'm basically personifying women as salt. So thinking about us primarily as like preservers of our family and culture and community. And I guess under the umbrella of this theme, I've been also really thinking about motherhood. So my journey into motherhood has been reflective in a lot of these pieces. And so this piece is a portrait of my mother. Her name is Angela. We call her Anne, or Queen Anne, a lot of people call her. And so it pays reference to her as like my birth mother, also my spiritual mother. But in the background, you can see that there's artworks in this piece. And so not only am I paying homage to my natural mother, but I'm paying homage to my art mothers as well. So earlier in the presentation, I talked about Elizabeth Khaled being a really strong influence on my work. So you can see there is a reference to her print titled Black Girl in the space. And then behind my mother's head is a reference to an artwork by Samela Lewis. And she's an amazing Black woman printmaker as well. Also really responsible for, developing the canon of Black artists. So that's Queen Anne. And so this piece, again, has a lot of elements drawn from my practice as a printmaker, also elements of my practice as a painter. So I'm really interested in taking, again, both of those worlds and figuring out how to put them together on the same surface in a very like seamless way. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, this piece is titled The Founder. Again, another one of like older works in the show. And the name comes because this is a portrait of Tanikia Word, who is the founder of Black Women of Print. So it's really important for me to document people in my community and kind of in my intimate space who I feel like are doing significant things. And not only just like they are significant because of the things that they've done, but they're significant just because of the person that they are and the relationship that I have with her. So a lot of these images are just kind of documenting people, documenting our images and documenting our stories. So this is the founder. And you can see from the detail shot, let me go back. Thank you. You can see from the detail shot, this is a mixed media piece. It's not a print or a work on paper. Sometimes when I show like these images online, people automatically assume that they're works on paper because people most commonly identify me as a printmaker. But I consider this as like a mixed media painting, right? So it's done on a wood panel, and I really enjoy working on wood panels right now because I can do everything on that same surface. I can carve into it, I can paint on it, I can collage. So it offers me the flexibility to move in between mediums. And you can see from the detail shot there that like I'm literally carving into the surface of the wood the same way I would like activate like a traditional wood block matrix. But I'm taking it a step further and adding other elements to it. Okay, we can go to the next image now. All right, this is a new work that was completed literally about a week ago. This is titled The Lioness. This is the image of my beautiful bonus daughter, Erin Jax, who is graduating from college this year. And so you can see, like, in all of these works, there's some type of combination of the figure and pattern. And so this pattern is significant for a couple of reasons. It's like a lion pattern that I constructed. So it's not like a traditional Adinkra symbol, but it's another type of pattern that I've come up with. And the lion serves a couple of purposes. One, her astrological sign is a Leo, which is like representative of the lion. But also she's graduating from the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and their mascot is a lion. So I wanted to kind of include that as a nod to her. And another tidbit of information, my husband went to that university as well as an undergraduate student. He designed the lion logo for that school. So a lot of like symbolism by using that particular print for her. And then on her shirt is, that is an Adinkra symbol. It's titled the Duafe. It's kind of like a wooden comb is basically what it is, but it symbolizes like ideas of beauty and femininity and kind of womanly qualities. So kind of associating with that symbol with her as well. Okay, we can go to the next piece. This piece is titled Jeanette's Daughters. It was finished in preparation for this exhibition at the tail end of last year. I also debuted this work at the IFPDA print fair in October of last year. So some of you may have been there and were able to see this work in person. So again, kind of going on this themes of like family and motherhood. I guess the story behind this piece is that these are Jeanette's daughters, and Jeanette, I mean, by the name Jeanette, I mean Pastor Jeanette Howard. She was the pastor of a church that I went to when I was a student in Arkansas at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. And she was like a really important figure for me at the time. And so at the time where I was attending their church, they had, their daughters were all little girls. And so I recently kind of reconnected with Pastor Jeanette via like social media, and she posted this image of her daughters, and they were all like adults now. And so it was just kind of this like very nostalgic experience for me, just thinking about them as little kids and now kind of seeing them as adults, and thinking about not only Pastor Jeanette's influence on my life at the time, but also what she's imparted to her daughters as well. So you can see here at the top of the composition, there's ivy, and that symbolizes kind of like a bond there, and it's representing like the bond between these sisters. And then the Adinkra symbol that I have in the background that's kind of forming this wall is called the Akoma, and it means kind of like conjoined hearts. So again, kind of representing like this bond between sisters, and also kind of the bond between mother and daughters. And this is a fully carved relief print. Excuse me, not a relief print, it's a full relief carving. And so the next slide, I just kind of gives a little bit into the insight of the process behind this work. So earlier I mentioned this idea of really thinking about the matrix as the art object. And so with all of my current pieces, I mentioned that they start with just a wood surface. So you can see here, this is me in the studio. These panels were, these cherry wood panels were just prepped with a layer of black acrylic paint. And then the next slide, you can kind of see more into the process. So after the panels are painted, I do all of my drawing with like a white water soluble pencil. So something that can like easily wiped away. And then from there, I kind of start with the carving process, which you can see on the next slide. You can see here, just I work with these pieces upright on the wall just because they're so large. This work is like 8 feet tall and 12 feet wide. So working with it on the wall just allows me to, be able to step back and take in the entire work. And then we can kind of see on the next slide is a detail image. So you can see it's just like tons and tons and tons and tons of carving. Again, taking the things that I love most about my practice as a printmaker, but thinking about that through the lens of me being a painter. Okay. This next image is titled Aaron and Anaya with hydrangeas. Just kind of playing on this idea of sisterhood and sistership. Even though they're cousins, they kind of still, for me, I see them kind of functioning as sisters, but they can also kind of be a fill-in for other women and how they see their relationships to the women in their community. You can see again the incorporation of flowers in this piece, just representing like the idea of flourishing. Flowers also represent like self-care for me personally. So in my personal life, I've just been thinking about more ways to incorporate small acts of kindness to myself, small acts of self-care. So typically in my home, I always have fresh flowers somewhere. So I've been like thinking about incorporating that into my works more. Again, this is a mixed media piece. It's on wood panel. There's carving. There's some painting in the background with the leaves. And the clothing on the figures is collaged and painted. Okay, this next piece is titled Flourish. It's titled after the exhibition. This is a portrait of Mahari Chabara. She is the founder of Studio House, which is a program in Baltimore that basically provides like housing and studio space for local artists. Earlier last year, I was invited to be a visiting artist at Studio House. And it was just like a really amazing experience for me. Mahari is an artist as well, like she's a painter, but additionally, she also like curates spaces. And so, you know, the space is so warm and inviting, and there were so many different like textures and plants and images. Just a very like amazing, visceral experience. And so from that visit, it inspired me to want to, you know, do a piece about it to kind of document that experience of being in Studio House. And so with this image, you can see there's lots of plants. Literally a lot of plants in the space. The large plant on the left side of the composition, I added that in myself. Is actually a plant that I do have in my own house. Added it in just, you know, for sake of the composition. But earlier I talked about being inspired by the work of Angelica Crosby. And so she does such a wonderful job of articulating spaces, but including things in the space that really give you insight to who the sitter is. And so that was a goal for me with this piece. So I specifically wanted to do a composition that was showing the window. And so the window for me like represents the location. So this was Studio House is located in Baltimore, Maryland. And Baltimore, Maryland is known for like its row houses. So you can see some row houses that are typical in Baltimore out of the window. Above the head of the sitter is a piece of artwork that was actually in this space, and it has 757, which is the zip code for Virginia Beach, which is where Mahari, the sitter, is from. And also, since the work is going to be debuting in the Contemporary Museum here, I wanted to definitely keep that as a part of the space. And then on the other artwork, on the other wall beside her I decided to put images of the American dogwood plant, which is also, it's like the flower of Virginia. So, you know, just incorporating tidbits of information through the objects in the space that give you insight to the viewer. Okay, we can go to the next slide. It just kind of shows a detail of that image. Okay, and then this next piece in the show is another new work, and then it's titled Sistership. Another image of Aaron and Anaya from before. As I mentioned, I like to do a lot of different pieces using the same models. So this piece, I think, is a little bit different from the other works in this show, in that it incorporates like the most amount of color. I kind of knew the color in the gallery was going to be like a green theme ahead of time, so I wanted to kind of carry that over into the work as well. So I had a few different ideas for this piece going into it initially. Like I knew the figures were going to be there, but I thought I was going to do like paint a background, like a forest scene or something in the background, but kind of changed my mind from that. But I wanted to keep it similar to the other works in terms of like using patterns and kind of flat shapes, but I wanted to kind of imply, I guess, kind of an imagined or implied space. So the symbol at the top of the composition that is an Dinker symbol that is supposed to be representative of the palm tree. And that it represents like resourcefulness, wealth, and like self-sufficiency. And so that's kind of the phase that these two women are in right now in their life. So, you know, it represents this idea of flourishing in plants, but it also kind of is significant to the models themselves. Okay. And then really quickly, and those are all the works in that exhibition, but really quickly before I kind of jump into my conversation with Miranda, I just wanted to briefly mention my piece Carving Out Time. I think it's one of the most significant works that I've done to date. But I guess to summarize this work, it's basically a look into my day in my life as a mom and practicing artist. So it takes you from the start of the day all the way to the end of the day. The dimensions of this work is like 60 feet in total, but it's broken up into like 5 sections that are all like 8 by 12 feet wide. We can go to the next slide. Let's go to the next one. There's a video that kind of shows the production of this work, like a behind the scenes look at the production of this work, but for sake of time, I'll just kind of go walk through the images themselves. So as I mentioned, this is like one work in 5 parts. So this is the first of those 5 scenes, titled Morning. It just kind of shows the start of the day. Also introduces all of like the main characters in the piece. So we have myself with this kind of outstretched and dramatic pose, my husband, and then my 2 sons. And something else that is significant about this piece is that you notice there's a lot of artwork on all the walls. That is for a couple of reasons. One, I think as an artist, it's also our responsibility to collect work as well. And as a parent, it's really important for me to expose my sons to lots of different artists. And last, it's also a way for me to pay, again, homage and pay respect to artists who have influenced my practice in some way. So above the bed, you can see there's 2 artworks. I'm referencing Elizabeth Catlett. Again, you can see her work on the right. That's a reference to a print titled Roots. And then on the left side above my head is a reference to the work of Alma Thomas, who is an amazing like abstract painter from the Washington, D.C. area. Okay, we can go to the next slide. You can show just some details there. So with all of like my carved pieces, it's really important for me to try to replicate textures really well. That's just kind of like a personal challenge that I have for myself. Also something that I just really enjoy about kind of working with this limited use of line to replicate things. So throughout all these works, you'll see that I'm trying to like just replicate as many different types of textures and objects as possible. Okay, go to the next. So this next scene in this series of images is titled Homeschool and Housework. And for me, it just kind of represents, I guess, the title of this piece, titled Carving Out Time. So I feel like, you know, we can all relate to that phrase. Like we always say, I need to carve out time to do this or carve out time to do that. And so that's, I guess, the role that I kind of find myself playing. You know, as I mentioned, I'm a mom, I'm an artist, full-time professor, mother. And so, you know, always this juggling act of trying to carve out time to get everything done in the day that needs to be done. So that's kind of where the title of this work comes from. So you can see here, there's a lot of different things happening in this room. I'm homeschooling my son. Another son is kind of playing in the floor, trying to fold clothes at the same time. So there's a lot of different things happening in this space. And I'm also, again, the artist that I'm paying reference to. There is a print, well, on the bookshelf to the left of the composition, there is a sculpture by Elizabeth Catlett. So not only paying homage to her as a printmaker, but paying homage to her as a sculptor. And then at the top is one of my favorite prints by Margaret Burroughs, titled Mother Africa, another Black woman printmaker. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Here, just see a detailed shot there. Okay, this is the third scene in that work. It's titled Dinner Time. It represents kind of like the apex of the work. And in the previous two images, we see that I was kind of like sitting in the piece, and this is like the only panel of the work where I'm standing. So kind of, all of my figures in the work, when the work is in a row, it makes kind of an arc across the artwork. So in this image, again, you can see all of the family members present, getting ready to sit down for a meal. And I purposely placed myself like in the middle of the composition, but also my husband is there with me. And that is just kind of to symbolize that like I don't do this work alone. There were, he's really supportive of my practice, and also just does so much to support our family. So I wanted to show us both active in this scene together. And the artworks that I'm referencing in this scene, right beside like my profile of my face, is a reference to another amazing Black woman printmaker, Valerie Maynard, who unfortunately passed away last year. And then to the far right of the composition is a nod to Carrie James Marshall. And I specifically chose a piece with a couple in the work. This is one of my favorite works by him. And then again, it just references the relationship between my husband and myself. And I would say also Carrie James Marshall is significant. He's also one of my major influences, but he specifically inspired this piece in terms of the scale. So I experienced his untitled print like in 2014, I believe. But if you're not familiar with that work, it's maybe like a 12-paneled color woodcut of a group of men in an apartment. But seeing that for the first time, it was just a mind-blowing experience. And so it caused me to eventually want to challenge myself to produce something on that same scale. Okay, we can go to the next image. There's a detailed shot of that. Okay, and this is the fourth scene in this series of images titled Bedtime for the Boys. And just to relate, referencing the relationship that we have with our children as parents. And so in addition to like each of the figures in the work, I really consider each of the spaces in this piece to be characters as well. So I definitely wanted each space to have a different look and feel based on who would predominantly be occupying that space, the type of activities that would be happening in that space. So with this space, I was really careful to make it feel like a child's room. And so you can see there's like lots of toys on the floor. There's a tent. Other things that we specifically chose to put in the space were a map. My sons are really into geography, but it also represents our desire for them to like travel and to see the world. If you go to the next slide, you can see there's artwork on the walls again. So the two pieces in the center are actually like their pieces. So, in the process of preparing for this work, I asked them to bring me drawings that they would want me to put in their space or represent in their room. The piece to the left is the dinosaur is a representative of Basquiat. And then the piece to the right, that portrait is a piece by my husband, Ariston Jacks. Okay, and then we can go to the next slide. So this represents like the fifth section of the work, the fifth and final section. So after like the entire day is done, the boys are in the bed, I'm finally able to kind of step out of my role as mother and step into my role as artist. So this is an image from the studio space I have in my basement. So I really wanted to be particular about representing myself as both a printmaker and a painter. So you can see on the floor, there's like a wood blocking process with like my wood carving tools on the floor. And in the chair that I'm seated in, I'm holding like a painting palette, again, to represent my identity as a painter. And the pose that I'm in, we can go to the next slide. The pose that I'm in is another direct reference to Carrie James Marshall, one of his other paintings that I really enjoy. It's of a woman in her studio, again, holding this really big palette. So wanted to reference another one of his works with this piece. And we can go to, I think that's like my last slide. Oh, okay. So during the production of those blocks and for me, the blocks were always intended to be like the final work. And they debuted at the Baltimore Museum of Art last year. But my husband convinced me to pull a set of prints from these pieces as well. So you can see here at the bottom, there's kind of like a thumbnail to show what all of these pieces look like as prints. And then here is an image from an exhibition that was at the High Point Center for Printmaking a couple of years ago. Again, you can kind of get a scale of the work and see like that there are print versions of that work that exist as well. Okay, I think that is my last slide. So if you want to stay connected with me, my IG address is there at Latoya Hobbs. I also have a YouTube channel, Latoya and Hobbs Studio. So if you want to check out that video about carving out time and the kind of the production of it and printing of it, you can find that video there. And then my website is latoyaandhobbs.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Latoya. That was amazing and beautiful and just lovely to see, and so exciting to see your new work. I think the last series that I'd really seen was Carving Out Time. I did get to see Jeanette's Daughters in New York, which was really wonderful to see it in person. So that was great. It's always such a strange experience to do these things digitally because there's no applause. I feel so much like there should be. But yeah, so I am really excited to ask you a few questions that I have about your practice and things that came up while you were talking. And then also for people who are watching, I've got my eye on the comments as well. So if you have any questions, comments, anything, we would love to see that too. So we'll put that up as we go as well. So I thought to start out, I might ask you sort of a basic, but like I think like a very printmakers question, as we are at the printmaking conference, which has to do with just the physicality of creating your work. You know, some of them very, very large scale pieces, as we saw the whole Carving Out Time series, and you spoke to, you know, needing to carve them standing up. But in terms of just how you protect yourself and your hand and your eyes and kind of preserve your ability to continue to make work, I think it'd be really interesting to hear, but also probably valuable for all the young printmakers who tune into SGCI and who are starting on their journey to make sure that you can continue to be a carver and a printmaker.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love in what I do. Yeah, and I think that the idea of like longevity is really important to me. It's just kind of thinking about for myself and really having to pull myself back sometimes and making myself rest. And so that was something that was really important when I was doing Carving Out Time. I worked on that over the course of a year. And so I built in breaks like over the course of that time, but also like in like days in the studio. So I would, you know, take breaks. I would massage, you know, do constant, you know, massage sessions on my hand. My husband bought me like one of those fancy, I don't know, massager gun things, like a Theragun, I think is what it's called. So I kept that in the studio with me. Also just staying like physically in shape. So like working out is really important. And I can always tell, like sometimes I sacrifice the gym. Like when I'm busy, like the gym is usually the first thing to go. Unfortunately, I don't recommend that. But I can tell the difference. And so I'm making sure that even if I only do something like 15 to 20 minutes, like just stretching, cardio or something like that, I can always tell a difference in, you know, how I'm able to be more agile, like in the studio. Yeah. So the answer is like building in breaks. Also, I've learned that keeping your tools sharp is really important. So like maybe after an hour of carving or so, or if I notice, you know, when your tools just aren't gliding through the wood like they should, keeping my tools sharp, it just reduces like hand fatigue, which is really important. And also investing in good tools, I think is important.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And so in terms of your technique as well, I thought one of the things that was so wonderful about your talk is we saw this kind of arc of your mark making. You know, we saw these pieces back from 2012, you know, all the way up through something like Jeanette's Daughters, where just the texture in all the different clothes and the background. And so I think one of the things that really is so strikingly beautiful about a lot of your portraits is the way you create the contours and the textures. Mm-hmm. And so your arc as an image maker, was that something that unfolded really just kind of naturally, or did you do some actual focused studying and thinking about like, okay, like how do I diversify the marks that I make? You know, just with that binary that relief gives us, you know, it's like it's either there or it's not there. But you, of course, managed to create, you know, whole worlds with it. What was that like for you, you know, over the last decade or so?
Well, I think sometimes it's just the act of doing something over a long period of time. Like I mentioned with that show that's up in California, that was like over 12 years worth of work. And I was pulling images together. I was like, wow, I didn't, you know, sometimes you just don't realize how long you've been doing something. But I think another part of it is that I don't separate the way I think about myself as a painter from the way that I think about myself as a printmaker. And so like with my painting and also like just with my drawing practice, I see things tonally, I guess, thinking about like, I'm kind of getting into my like teacher lingo now, but thinking about like continuous value, that's how I understand things better. So with me, it's thinking about like linear tonality, right? Since it's a mark, I just think about that as line. And I would also say like teaching has helped me a lot. And I can't stress enough the importance of like drawing. I think drawing is the foundation of any type of art practice, whether you're, you know, doing printmaking or drawing or painting, even sculpture, or whatever. I think drawing is so important. And then I think it also just becomes an act of learning to trust myself. Because with a lot of like the textures and the things in carving at time, I was like, I don't know how to do this. I have no idea. I've never carved like a granite countertop or trying to like carve something to make it look like water. So it was really just like going deeper within myself and saying, Latoya, you know what to do. Start with the marks, trust yourself, and it'll be okay. But yeah, and then I think it's also just kind of like my strength as an observational artist. I think that's kind of where my strength lies as well.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about something like, as you specifically mentioned the granite countertop, and I can imagine that you're probably already pretty deep into quite an undertaking, and then you get to the countertop and you think, okay, I need to nail this, right?
Yeah, I just kind of had this. I just had to stop. I just stopped and like I was like, how do I do this? And then, you know, after a while, it's like, well, I'm already in the work. Like, just trust yourself, and you know, it'll come to you.
That's beautiful. Speaking of that series, I guess a bit more. How do your boys feel about being in the Baltimore Museum of Art permanent collection now?
Yeah, I think they enjoy it a lot. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. Like somebody in the gallery today was like, you know, do your sons like know how big of an artist you are? And I think I'm still kind of growing as an artist. I was like, I don't know. They're like around this all the time. I can tell that they're proud of me. But yeah, and I can tell that they're listening and observing and taking in things. Yeah, and so I just think they kind of have this like, I don't know, like a sense of confidence as well. But I kind of want it to feel normal for them though. So if they do want to venture out into their own identities as artists, yeah, they already have like a sense of confidence, a sense of self-awareness. But I think they enjoy it. They enjoy coming to the art shows. They enjoy talking about the work. Like we talk about the work together, like as a family. It's funny, at the opening here in Virginia last night, they had their phone out, like recording and talking about the art. So yeah, it's been really, really fun to see. But I don't know, I think we'll continue to see how those experiences are shaping them maybe in the next 4 to 5 years as they continue to grow and evolve and learn and explore on their own. Yeah.
And you know, I think what you're speaking to is that, you know, it's all they've known is having a mom who's an artist, right? And so I think as they get older, they might understand that is a really special family to be in, that what your day-to-day life is now in the canon of art history. That's really, a wonderful gift for them for sure. Yeah. And I'm hoping too, you could speak a little bit to the experience, you know, of sort of, and I don't know if you see it this way personally, but kind of like motherhood is a creative practice and being an art maker is a creative practice. You know, I'm not a mom myself, but I've heard sometimes people speak to it that way. You know, you create life not just in like the physicality sense of that, you know, you were pregnant with the children, but also like creating a life for them, you know, like truly like building what their day-to-day lived experiences, that's a creative act. And then also you're doing an image making process. Is that related, or do they inspire each other or feel at odds? What's that like for you?
I think it's I see art making a lot of times as problem solving, and I think that goes hand in hand with mothering, just like creativity and being flexible. Yeah, sometimes like what worked when they were babies doesn't work now, and even what worked last month doesn't work. So I think just kind of that sense of flexibility and being able to shift and move and be agile. I think it's really important, not only like in the studio, but also in my life as a mother. And you're in this constant state of problem solving and kind of anticipating. You know, I think as artists, we problem solve all the time, whether we, you know, really think about it and look at it that way or not. You know, whatever it is, like how do I take this clay and make it into whatever I'm trying to make it into? That's like an active problem solving. Or how do I take, you know, this chair or whatever I'm drawing and make it look three-dimensional on this 2D surface? Like that's problem solving. You know, and I'm kind of going back and forth between that mode as a mother as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that description of motherhood and is problem solving. I feel like I've definitely seen that with my own nieces, you know, and their parents for sure. Yeah. And so does it ever get at all complicated for you to use family members as subjects and to do really intimate portraits of people who are close to you? Is that emotionally complicated at all, or are people, you know, always thrilled to be included in the work? I'm just thinking about like because with my personal experience of just doing the podcast with my husband, like that's a creative, collaborative thing. And it can get tense sometimes because, you know, we're artistic collaborators as well as partners, you know, as well as everything else. So I don't know what your experience is collaborating with family or having them as the subjects.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's been really positive so far. A lot of people are like really receptive and like honored. Yeah, so I don't know. I hadn't had any like tension or pushback in that regard in terms of like the actual people who are allowing me to reproduce their image. And my husband, like I see ourselves as collaborators as well, not necessarily like that we collaborate on like art pieces together. He's an artist as well, so you know the children get it from both sides. But we're in collaboration in terms of like how we run the household, how we are kind of flexible with each other and supporting each other in our own practices. And so when I was talking about carving out time and, you know, his role and importance in our family, it's really significant. I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I do if he were not so generous and so supportive. And so we collaborate in that way. And so he supports me with his strengths and his skill set, and I support him with my strengths and my skill set, which is usually like I'm the more like administrative person in the family. So I keep up with due dates. I keep up with like getting packages on time. Like we need to book flights to be here at a certain time, or I'm just kind of keeping up with like the flow of things. And he is like our resident problem solver about anything, packing work, shipping work, materials, the knowledge base of like materials and what to use for what. He's just like really innately really well at that stuff. He calls himself our quality control. So I get a lot of like unsolicited critiques sometimes, but they're always like very vital and very like important to me and to my practice. So
yeah, I feel like that's got to be such a gift to have someone who understands, you know, what it is to be a working artist and who has an eye that you trust. Has got to be wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I'm going to pop up a question we've got from YouTube here. I think I can get it to show. And so it's another technical printmaker in question because we were here at the printmaking conference, but it says you mentioned using good tools and asking if there's any in particular that you recommend.
Yeah, so I think for carving out time, majority of the tools that I use were FlexCut tools, which are really important. And I also got their little like sharpening set, which is important to me. Like I mentioned, like keeping your tool sharp really reduces like hand fatigue. Recently, I've also started using, I don't know how to pronounce it, but there's a Swiss-made brand of tools called Perfil, P-E-F-I-L, I believe is how it's spelled. But you can go like to woodcraft.com and find either of those brands.
Mm. What about, you said keeping them sharp too, as long as we're in tool corner here. What do you use, like a leather strop or one of the stones? What's the way you enjoy doing
I
it?
actually have to learn how to use a leather strap, but Flex Cut has this like set. It has like a block with like a piece of like leather on one side, and it comes like with like the chalk that you just rub over the leather, and you can like, it's kind of a honing tool. I'm sorry that the exact name of it is escaping me right now, but that has been really important. It's really easy to use. I'm not like the most like tech savvy person. I want to invest like in a sharpening wheel thing. I'd have to learn how to use it, but for now, like just the honing strap and like the little chalk have been really, have worked really well so far.
Yeah. Do you think that you've got more really large scale projects left, in your practice, or do you think that it's going to be maybe more that's sort of something that you wanted to do and you did it, and now you're ready to pull back the scale a little bit?
No, I love working large. Like that 8x12 size is, I don't know, it's such a comfortable size now. It's kind of like intimidating at first. Like, I don't know, I feel like after doing carving out time, I just feel like I can do anything. So yeah, I'm actually really comfortable at working in a large scale. So I don't know, I'm starting to get invitations for like exhibitions for like 2025, 2026. So I don't know, there may be some other things in the works, still on that large scale.
Yeah, that would be very exciting. One of the things that is touched on a little bit before that I think is really captivating about your work is just the physical beauty of it. Like some of these pieces, they're so stunning, truly. They kind of like, they hit you right when you see them. And a lot of them, as you've spoken to, they also have powerful and important messages about representation, about value of family life and people seeing themselves. And I guess, I don't know if it's a fully formed question, but maybe as someone who's creating these images, do you see the beauty as a vessel for the message? Do you see it intrinsic to it? Sort of the form and function or form and concept, maybe, kind of balance in what you create, which is so beautiful and then also has such an important story to tell as well.
I think it kind of goes both ways. I think it's me stopping to kind of put to the forefront these like everyday moments that I think sometimes we just kind of take for granted. And also kind of seeing it in a different type of space, right? So we go to the gallery and we automatically get the connotation that, oh, I'm walking to this space and it's here because this is significant, because this is important. So I think the space that we see these images in also gives kind of that context of like, oh, this is significant. It's something that I need to stop and take in and observe. And so, with the pandemic, I think us being in our spaces, it kind of really like, we either found out that we really love where we live or we really don't like where we are because we were just at home all the time. So yeah, just really highlighting these like everyday moments, the quotidian, and just being appreciative of that and thinking about these like tender things. And sometimes like, that we just kind of don't really think about. We gravitate towards certain objects and certain things for a reason. So like, our favorite coffee mug, our favorite like set of slippers, our, the toys that our children play with. So just kind of bringing those things to the forefront. And just showing that there's like beauty in those things. And for me, I guess taking that a step further, showing like the beauty of like people in my community, like my family members, friends, people that I met in college, and not, beauty in terms of like, oh, they're all dolled up and in some type of like fancy gown, but just as they are, just showing like all the multifacetedness of the people that I'm representing in the work.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard the time when one is parenting or raising or caregiving young children is referred to as like the longest, shortest time. And so this idea that it seems to never end, but it also flies by. And I don't know if that's been your experience, but I could see, you know, creating these images that, especially with like such, you know, time and focus that it takes to carve, might seem like sort of crystallizing or holding on to that a little bit as it slips by. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that, the shortest, longest time. I can see sometimes it seems really long, and then sometimes it's like, wow, you were just 2 years old, now you're at like 8. So
yeah. And then and I know that you said one of your sons has definitely ambitions to be an artist currently, and then I think I've heard you mention before that one of them is interested in being an engineer as well. And so you've got
my oldest son is Ade. He's 8. He is like wants to be an oceanographer. He's really into the ocean and the environment, but he also wants to be an artist. And my youngest son, he said he just recently told us what he's going to do. He said he's going to be a person that makes films, an engineer, a rapper, and an artist. Well, he's 6, so I don't know. We'll see. But artist and engineer are things that have been like most consistent. But even, you know, we don't pressure them to, you know, say you're going to be an artist. But like you said, they've just seen it their whole lives. It's kind of all they've known. And even I think even before we started like bringing them into the studio when they were like tiny, they would just like get paper and draw and, you know, just kind of do their own thing. And they literally draw every day.
That's
like
lovely.
Every day.
Yeah. So we've got another question from YouTube. This is Eddie Lopez. Thank you for the talk, Latoya. Could you please say a little more about the carved wood matrix as an art object? How do you see these as similar / difference to the prints from these blocks?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's more just a way to describe like where it comes from, like where my practice stems from. So again, it's really based in my identity as a printmaker. And so as a printmaker, we use the lingo of like the matrix or the wood block. And, you know, typically that's only for the purpose of producing your edition prints. And then after you're done with the block, you either like strike it out or you tuck it away. And so I would get questions from people who are not printmakers or were not artists, and they would see me working on like a wood block, carving it. And they were like, oh, this is nice. Like, can I buy this thing from you? And I'd be like, well, no, this isn't the thing you buy. I'm just going to make some works on paper. You buy the works on paper. And they're like, well, I just really like this thing that you're working on. And so, you know, kind of those instances were like, well, why can't the block be the artwork? And so, like I said, I would just spend so much time like during this carving, and that I would just really become enamored with that. So, you know, that kind of led me to working like lots of different ways. So as I mentioned in the presentation, I have some wood blocks where I know from the start, I'm only going to carve this so I can make prints on paper. And then, you know, I'm not going to do anything else with it. And then other pieces, I go into it with the intention that, okay, this painter's panel, it's a wood, I can carve into it. So I'm going to carve it, produce a small like 3 prints, printing by hand, and then I can go back to it in collage. And then there's other instances where I know like I'm not gonna print anything from this block, but I'm thinking about my carving tools just as the same way I would use a paintbrush or a pencil or anything like that. So it just kind of gives me the flexibility to move between those things. But it's really just a way for people to understand where the origins of this is coming from. It's coming from the fact that I'm a printmaker who does wood cuts. And so normally like the wood cut would be to produce prints, but I'm taking the wood block and then using that and putting that to the forefront of the work.
Yeah. And then in terms of like the way you see them, for instance, you know, in the circumstance in which the wood block exists as its fully formed art object, and then also you printed it, are they the same piece conceptually for you? Are they totally different? Are they two sides of the same coin?
I kind of see. So I think with carving out time, in particular, because that's like that's a whole lot of carving. And then there's like additions, like there's an addition of 2, and I have an artist proof that I'm going to keep for myself. So for me, that kind of represents like interior and exterior. And so with that work from the onset, because I knew that I was going to be putting the blocks on display, I just see it as like a mixed media painting. But I say the matrix is art object as a way for kind of people, I guess, to kind of understand the origins of like where my art practice has started. So I had to make a lot of decisions, because as we all know, like with printmaking, you have to reverse your image, especially if you're going to use text, so that when you print it, like the text is going to show up the right way. And so because I was referencing like really specific artworks, I just kind of had to make decisions like, do I want the artwork to show up the right way in the block, or do I want it to show up the right way in the print? And so for me, because I knew the blocks were going to be the primary thing on display, I carved everything as I like wanted to see it. And so I just kind of had to be okay with knowing that in the print versions of them, like the artworks will be backwards. I also purposely did not put any text in the piece because I knew when I printed them, the text would end up being backwards. And so for me, that represents like the blocks represent like the interior experience, like how me and my family, how we experience ourselves. And then the prints kind of represent like the outside looking in, right? Because I think sometimes there's kind of like a, that could be like a reverse perception of how people perceive other people in my experience, particularly like as a Black woman in America, in our country. Sometimes it's like, you know, different perceptions that people have. And so, you know, the primary image is like, I'm giving you a look into our everyday lives. And then hopefully you'll be able to see a representation of yourself in that life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't even occur to me that, of course, you've got these really specific pieces. And so they would be flipped one way or the other, but it makes sense that you did it the true form in the block itself. And so did you say that those are pieces that are your family's collection, or is it the dream collection, or is it a combination of a dream collection and an actual collection?
They are all dreams. I wish we could except for like in my son's room, except for like, you know, my children's artwork and like the piece that I was referencing of my husband. All of those are like dream works. Like I can't actually have those works, but I can like vicariously have them by representing them in this art space.
In the art space. Have you ever had any artists, you know, give that you're referencing, have connected with them about the fact they show up in the piece? I know some artists like Elizabeth Catlett who passed away, but Kerry James Marshall, has he ever?
No,
I said, hey, I saw your work in my work in your work.
No, that would be a dream. And so I guess speaking about him, like Harvard Art Museum bought a set of the prints from Carving Out Time, but they also have the Kerry James Marshall print that I was mentioning earlier. So I was like, oh, we're in the same collection. I haven't actually had a chance to meet him, or I don't know, he may not even be aware that I exist, but that's okay.
Yeah. You've got the perfect conversation starter should you see him at an opening. Yeah. And we've got a question here from SGCI International, which is tips for balancing time and staying organized with all that you do.
Ooh, a planner. Like I have a like old school paper planner, and I've also recently had to start like using my phone just as like to give me like reminders. You know, with life being like as busy as it has gotten, I would like teaching and practicing and like homeschooling, I have to look at my planner every single day, and I have to like set reminders on my phone. But I think now I'm getting into a season where I'm really being careful not to like overexert myself, and just reminding myself like you don't have to do every single thing. You know, so you know, it kind of like you get into these things like because of longevity, you kind of have to hold back some things, you know, just to make sure like you're able to work to work longer. And I think that's really important, just again because of how labor intensive the work is. But yeah, definitely like a planner is my thing. I also have like a notebook. I have it beside me now, so this is my notebook. Like I write to-do list, like you can see there's like tons of things there, so I'm constantly looking in my my notepad, constantly looking at my planner, and then just again making sure that I'm like not just trying to do too much, and I'm being really specific about the things that I take on, because I want things like to be more meaningful and more significant. And I also want to be able to have time just to enjoy the things that I'm doing, and not just doing so much that I'm like finishing one project and have to like jump into the next thing without having like time to reflect. So
yeah, I think that's such wise words, because I know a lot of people in the arts, you know, we get in this almost sort of like lack mentality where we're always trying to catch up. Like there's never enough time, there's never enough funding, there's never enough teaching positions, all these things that kind of fall onto us. And yeah, just to intentionally hold back is so smart. It reminds me of someone kind of put, I think, described as like the 80-20 rule. Like, it's okay to just give 80% of yourself in a day. Like, you don't have to be so flat out by the end of the day that you're crawling into bed, that you don't have anything left for your family, for your self-care, for the gym, these things that we need to do to make sure that we can show up as our best selves, to not only to our work, but to the people who really matter to us, like our family, like the people who make up our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. And and part of it is like understanding the season that you're in. Like, sometimes as artists, like, it is real, like you do have hustle season. And so I'm kind of like still in hustle season, hustle mode. But at the same time, I'm really, again, thinking about longevity, thinking about legacy, thinking about myself, and not like wearing myself down so much, because I do want to be able to work for a long time. And so I'm really good. I've really like gotten good at working hard. Like, I think in any point in time, like if somebody asks you about me, like they would, like a hard worker would eventually come up in the conversation. So I'm really good at working hard now. I need to like learn to be good at resting. Resting and like just, yeah. I'm actually like really tired, really tired. So coming off like of this last show, I was literally like working like down to the wire. I mean, we go through these seasons of sacrifice, but it can't be like sacrifice all the time, right? You have to like be aware, like coming in and out of things, and just planning times of rest. So, and somebody said, I saw somebody said about balancing. I don't really try to balance anymore, because nothing is going to have the same amount of importance at one time, right? It's just even thinking about like my year. So now I'm in the academic year, so teaching has a place. So some things can't be the same level of priority, but what I can do is like have things harmonize with each other. Like, I want harmony among all the things that I do. And so if you think about like a choir singing, like sometimes the sopranos are singing the loudest, sometimes the altos are singing the loudest, sometimes the tenors are singing the loudest, but they're all on notes where they all blend together, even though some things may take priority at different parts in the song. And so that's kind of how I think about my life right now. Sometimes in the week, teaching has to have the most priority. Sometimes studio has the most priority. But I think as long as like everything is kind of being in harmony with each other, it works. But then whenever something is like starting to not be harmonious with other things, you kind of have to evaluate that and say, okay, do we need to take this note out, or how can we adjust this particular thing or this particular note so that it can blend with everything else?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like, harmony over balance, I think, is a perfect image. And I was thinking about it too, in the context of an artist's career. I would imagine you have all of this hustle leading up to a big event like the exhibition in Baltimore. And then once that happens, I would imagine, now you're more on the stage, because you've got this exhibition at this major museum that's this like really powerful showing of what you can do as an artist. And so then maybe right there, when you're kind of feeling maybe more drained, people then want more of you. They're like, oh, I saw your show. I want to show you at my gallery. I want you to come on my podcast. I want you to give a talk here. And so that must be kind of a bit of a tightrope to kind of know what to say yes and what to say no to,
right?
To, as you say, protect yourself once you have sort of been forefronted in people's minds, and then they want you,
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was kind of alluding to earlier, just being intentional about things and really thinking about what my goals are, and only like kind of focusing on things that are going to get me closer to those specific goals. Or thinking about the things, if it's like a passion project or something like that, or something that I just kind of really want to support. But yeah, I have become like better at saying no. I'm not saying no, or I'm not available, or it's just not going to work with my like schedule right now. Because we want to do things, we want to be active, we want to be involved, and like I think it's sometimes like when I had a strong wave, you want to continue to ride the wave and like build the momentum, just kind of setting up foundations for other things to happen later. But just have to go into it with wisdom. Like, you want to be around to experience the things that you work so hard for.
Yeah, sometimes I think about it in terms of, like, for me, like what my body is saying. Like, and if I feel like I'm being pressured into something, or I feel like someone's really be like, you have to do this right now, and creating the anxiety inside me, then I'm like, I don't think this is the right path.
Right.
You know, even if it seems like a good idea, if it seems like somebody's really like putting the pressure on.
Yeah, and you know, even good things can be a distraction, you know. So
it's so true.
Yeah, so just, I'm just really like being mindful and really thinking about like being honest with myself about what I want, what I don't want, what I want to do, what I want the next few years to look like, being honest about what it's going to take to like achieve those goals, and just, you know, to thine own self be true. Like, you know yourself better than other people. So just really listen to that to that inner voice on the inside of you.
Yeah,
and again, just again, acknowledging that sometimes like you will be working hard, like it's necessary. But at some point you kind of have to take a step back and be able to kind of just reflect on everything before you go into that next like kind of, you know, hustle season or whatever.
Yeah. And as people in the arts, I think we're really lucky in that I think our hustle season can be joyful and rewarding in a way that I know people in other industries, they're like, it's my busy season, you know, and like there's no joy in that. But I think finding the balance, as you've spoken to, is so important. So we've got maybe about 5 minutes left. I just want to give one more shout out to questions from Facebook or YouTube. You can pop it right in and they'll pop up here. But yeah, I feel like that was also just, you know, a really lovely note to end on in terms of, you know, finding the harmony and everything. And we'll kind of give the SGCI crew a chance to sort of turn over and get things started for the satellite events that were going to be coming next and everything like that. So thank you so very, very much, Latoya. It was just wonderful to see you again and to connect again and to know more about your work. It's always so exciting to see what you're up to and very inspiring.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody in the comments. I've turned the comments on now so I can kind of see what everybody's saying. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you again, Miranda.
Yeah, this has been lovely. And I've been told by SGCI that I can steal a couple minutes at the end to say, don't forget about Print Santa Fe, which is coming up next month, which should be hopefully a joyful gathering of printmakers. PrintSantaFe.org. That's all I'll say about it. Go check it out. But I think it'll be a good time with good print people then too. So wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much again. And I think probably a 5-minute break. And then I think they're going to the satellites, which should be super fun too. So, okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much again, Latoya and Miranda. That was wonderful. Sorry for the technical difficulties we had earlier, but here is our ad from Random Roulette. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it working?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Random Roulette Printmaking Tools offers roulettes in 2 wheel orientations, concentric to the handle, the other perpendicular to the handle. Each model can be ordered with smaller or larger hexagonal handle and larger or smaller wheel. The concentric tool is typically easier to work with when one is getting used to handling either of the tools. The perpendicular tool may be more maneuverable as one practices. The tools are generally held the same way one would hold a pencil. The concentric tool works well in drawing arced lines. Alternatively, the concentric tool can be held in a handlebar grip for looser tonal work. I've selected an ink that is well suited to printing dry point medium, since the traces made by the roulettes in which there's a burr or a type of dry point. Since the traces are not very deep, I've elected to dab the ink onto these plates done with roulette. I'm using cheesecloth to dab on the ink as opposed to squeegeeing it, since the traces are very subtle and there's not the necessity to try to work a volume of ink into passages on the plate. I'm using cheesecloth to do this because it is far softer than tarlatan and therefore should be kinder to the plate.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of SolidWorks Live Design episode.
Hi again, here we are. Thank you again so much for our little technical difficulties, but we're human. So please consider donating to SGCI to help us show more events like this. Now we'd like to do a quick overview of tomorrow's live events. We have one presenter from each satellite to tell us about their event, but since I'm kind of emceeing with Claire and we're the home presenters, I would like to introduce Claire, Molly, and Grace. And tomorrow, Molly and Grace will be
printing glitter and flocking.
Printing and glitter flocking from Western Illinois University. I am going to be working on a demonstration of what I like to call scratch away print, which is reductive style, screen printing, printing on Durlar, working away from it, and Claire will be working in lithography. So that's what's going to be going on here at Western Illinois University. So next we have Carolyn Muscat at Iron Print. Leg. I was like, good job.
Hi.
There we go. I'm Carolyn Muscat. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and we will be hosting Iron Print School SMFA, which stands for School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University. And this will be a print competition between 3 teams, 4 students and a coach per team. Each team must complete an edition of 10 that includes litho, intaglio, relief, and screen or stencil, and a bag of mystery ingredients that they don't know what are until 9:02 tomorrow morning. This will start at 9 a.m. and go until 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, and nothing can be prepped ahead of time. The students are prepped and they are going to be running full out in order to complete all of this. There are prizes and it should be a lot of fun. There are Zoom links and please check us out. It's a lot of fun. It's all in fun. If you have questions, reach out to lithoqueen@muscatstudios.com. We will be hosting the event and we will have Michael Smoot with our roving reporter, and we will have 2 other stationary Zoom links. So there are 3 Zoom links actually for the event. So we look forward to seeing everybody. All right. Thank you very much. If you need other info, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. I am reading the blurb for Miami. Joseph Velasquez is helping with this event, and he couldn't be here because he is literally in the event right now. So he'll be broadcasting tomorrow, and he says, multiple layers printmakers playground. The printmakers playground will feature printmaking professors from the University of Miami, Florida State University, Florida International University, Florida Atlantic University, and the University of Northern Florida. Each professor will present a demonstration either inside IS projects or outside. Attendees can participate in an open studio where they will show their work on tables outside and engage in demonstrations throughout the day. The event will have a few pop-up tents to host demonstrations and will feature a few printmaking-based carnival games. Speedball has generously donated the game prizes. On Saturday, we will also feature a steamroller program using a gravel impactor to print 3x4 hand-carved relief blocks. We also have a map of local museums and local events, and we'll have a gallery crawl following the event, which sounds amazing and warm. So I hope that you will tune in and watch Miami.
Okay, so next we'd like to go to Catherine Aiello from ZMAs.
Hi, my name is Catherine Aiello. I'm a member and former intern at ZMA's Printmaking in Western Massachusetts. And tomorrow we will be presenting on flocculating acrylics in the screen printing studio. For those who are not water chemists, flocculation is a process that you can use to basically remove acrylic particles from wastewater, which is great for improving the quality of water that's going down the drain, whether you have a municipal treatment plant or a septic system. So we'll be demonstrating the situation that we came to, the solution after several months of research and several different groups of interns. We will show the process for mixing the solutions, what to add to your buckets, how to construct the setup for filtration and treatment. And we'll share videos and links so you can try it out at home or in your studio. We'll also have one of our members who worked on the project who is now in Texas, but will be joining us remotely to share about how you can do it on a smaller scale at home, since at ZMAs we've adapted it for a larger shared printmaking studio that has many different people using acrylic inks. Yeah, we're really excited to share our research and hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Catherine. Up next, is Catherine Combs from Auburn University.
Hi, I'm Catherine Combs, and this is Andy Holliday, and we are hosting Do It Yourself at Auburn University. So our demos are focused on techniques that you can use regardless of how much equipment you have available to you. Andy, do you want to tell them about your demo?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about using sort of an oldie but a goodie, introducing some manual exposures or double exposures for screen printing using halftones, some creative halftones, some diffusion dithers, that sort of thing. Talk about how I kind of got to this point in the research, and some tips for how you all can kind of orient your studio to accommodate this practice.
And my demo is going to be on Tyvek, which is a paper-like material that's made from spun plastic, how you can use it in printmaking and screen printing in particular. And then we're also going to be making some little, very simple pocket books. So I hope that you can join us.
Thank you, Auburn. I just wanted to say another reason we have these satellite locations is that we can visit all of these places that perhaps we wouldn't get to visit at a normal SGCI conference. So now, Valerie Dibble from Kennesaw State.
Hey, Valerie, we're sorry, you're muted right now. We're very excited to hear about Kennesaw.
And I'd been so charming all this time.
Oh, good.
So charming and informative. No, I'm so sorry. I've been sitting here trying to be quiet because my dog's been barking through the whole thing. But yeah, I was just saying that I'm the coordinator of the printmaking concentration at Kennesaw State. We're the host home for the SGCI archives with the Zuckerman Museum of Art. We're really looking forward to everybody joining us in person at the satellite. I hope we'll have a nice crowd. We have a lot of exciting things going on. We're going to have Chris Neuenschwander, who's Noosh of Noosh Studios. He's a KSU alum and very, very popular printmaker. If you don't know him, please go look him up because he's just amazing. Noosh Studios. We're going to have demos on Collograph and silkscreen and letterpress, and just tours during the day. We have an amazing collection of historic presses and just a beautiful space. So we're looking forward to a really great day. We have 2 or 3 things already ready to go for virtual presentations, some looping videos. We have some animated print projects, mannequin challenge, national conference for undergraduate research, a print big kind of thing with them, 1888 Colombian iron letterpress demo, and a bunch of fun things. And frankly, after hearing everybody else's stuff, I'm wishing I could just watch all the rest of the day, but I'm going to be busy at the studio. But we do look forward to it, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, so next we have Kamala Kakaria from Seattle.
Hi. So I just want to make sure that so everything that is going to be happening, we are going to be able to see it on video later, right, from the website?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I don't want to miss anything either.
I know there's so many good things going on.
So yeah, my name's Kamala Kakaria. I'm here in Seattle. I'm an SGCI board member. I'm also the Seattle Print Arts Board President. And we're going to be having our event at Pratt Fine Arts Center in the Central District, and I'm the manager of that 2D department. So our live part of the event is a panel. It's going to be on from 1 to 2:30 our time, 4 to 5:30 East Coast time. And so I'm going to read the panel description. This panel will provide firsthand accounts discussing that while funding for artists from many minority ethnic groups has risen sharply since 2019, funding and opportunities for Latinx artists has gone down in our region and nationally. This panel will be the retelling of Latinx artists' recent experiences, discussions about possible causation for the decline, and sharing of strategies to ask for accountability from funders for the discrepancy in funding equitability. The moderator will be Scott Mezcal. He's a fellow board member, Seattle Print Arts board member. The panelists, Jake Prendez, Bianca Santander, Amaranta Ibarra Sandys, and these are all powerhouses in the Latinx community here and over the country. Then after that, we'll have an open portfolio and socializing, which will not be broadcast. But this panel should be really fascinating, I think. So thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
You want there? Oh, thank you, Kamala. And thank you, everyone. We will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow will be done entirely on Zoom and the Zoom portal run by University of Wisconsin-Madison. Okay, another thing to remind you all is please vote for the next board online. Here we are for that. And here is Claire White, SGC president.
Hi, I just wanted to see if I could share my screen. I hope you can see it. The SGCI board nominations are now closed, but you can vote online. And you can also check out our website to see the multiple layers schedule. There's Latoya again. Here's the Saturday schedule. And see if I can get the voting page up. So we have you do have to be logged in, but we do have everybody listed. We have a lot of really good candidates for the board. We will have 4 people newly elected to the board, and we will have 4 people coming off, including me. And I have really enjoyed being president. I'll miss you all, but got a lot of good candidates. Please remember to come to the members meeting tomorrow at 12 EST. That's when all of our events start. The recordings will start at 1 EST after the members meeting. And I would like to remind everybody that we are totally member run, member supported. We love your support. Please consider donating following this QR code to SGCI. And I believe Valerie Dibble has one last thing to say, and then we will head out for the night. Hey, Valerie.
Hey there. Yeah, I just wanted to mention our day is actually being hosted on site by Cynthia Lawless, one of our printmakers. And also we're going to have a really exciting video from the Zuckerman Museum on how your print gets into the archives. So I hope everybody will tune in for that.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you, Susan. We did end a little bit early, so please go to our website, check out Multiple Layers, check out this live stream, should be up on YouTube if you want to watch it again, if there's something that you missed. And thank you to Kathy Savage, our admin, who's been running all of this behind the scenes. We hope to see everybody tomorrow. We also hope to see everyone in person in Providence in 2024 and in person in Puerto Rico in 2025. We'll have more news regarding those two conferences tomorrow at our members meeting. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.